Oh, a year and a half ago, I very seriously bruised my coccyx by jumping down on a gaming chair. I should have learned. Hello, friends! Today, it's 27 degrees in London, and it's very humid, so if I start melting, please bear that in mind. But, hello, today, we learned a lot about the EU League for Rainbow Six Siege, and I wanted to talk about it. There is so much that we learned, and I don't want to go through absolutely everything. I want to focus a little bit more on the Tier 2 scene, like I did when I spoke about what happened with the NA League in the video that I did about that, which you can see here. Oh, actually, they don't do that on YouTube anymore, do they? I'll link the blog post and the video down below that explains everything. But the really interesting part about EU is everything is so super streamlined to really help build up the bottom tiers, the tier 3, even potentially the tier 4 who'll be playing in those national leagues to help give them a streamlined path into Pro League. And I think it's very, very interesting how they've gone about it. And I have a number of thoughts, especially as I've seen a couple of opinions, conflicting or otherwise, on the timeline. So I thought it would be interesting. So just as a point of prefacing things, one thing that has to be noted, and it is not insignificant, one thing that has to be noted, and it's not insignificant, is the fact that the European League is not a LAN league. It's going to be done remotely in the same way that it has so far, as ESL has been doing the Pro League, and so all the teams will be playing from home or from a team house if that's what they have, but the point is they will not all be centered in one area like they're going to be in North America, and I believe Brazil as well. This means that there are certain aspects of how things are done which are very similar to what you see in a franchise league and that we are seeing in the North American League that we will not see in Europe, i.e. they do not have to be particularly stringent about keeping orgs in Pro League. This is important, and it's very interesting as well. So without delving too much into that, I'm just going to go into a couple of the examples, a couple of things that we learned that hark back to this point, that make it important, but also make it so freaking good for the Tier 2 scene in Europe, and I think will promote a really, really healthy scene. So the first point is one that has been particularly controversial on social media already so far, and that is auto relegations. So in the new EU League, if you come last, you will be automatically relegated and switched out for the team that came first in EU Challenger League. Now, a lot of people have varying opinions as to whether or not that's good. Some people think that if you come last, you should have the opportunity to fight for the spot that you just lost, and therefore the top team in Challenger League should also have to fight for a spot. I don't personally necessarily agree with this. I have to say, I agree kind of with what Ace of Pyrite said on Twitter, and that is that if my team wins something, I want them to win something. I don't want them to win the opportunity to win something. And I think it's perfectly fair. But I think this is also very, very good for the overall health and the overall economy of the scene, and here's why. So I think what we're going to see off the back of this is a lot more organizations getting invested in Tier 2 because they have a reason to believe that they will make it into Tier 1. Not only that, but being in Tier 1 doesn't really guarantee you anything. If an organization invests in a team that's in Tier 1, there's no real protection that's keeping them there like we would see in a franchise league, and like we're seeing a little bit more of in the NA League, given that you have to have an organization in order to actually be a part of it. And what this means is organizations have more of an incentive to invest in those Tier 2 teams, help them get better, help build them to the teams that they want to be able to get into Tier 1, pay them, and this is the really important part, it means that Tier 2 players more often than not will be earning a salary and will be in a position where they can develop their skills, they can get better, and they can constantly raise the ceiling and raise the floor of what Tier 2 even is, while having it as their job and being able to move up towards Tier 1. And overall, it will raise the skill of what is going on in European Rainbow Six, as well as bringing in a lot more big names from an organizational perspective into the esport, which will raise the profile of the esport overall. What this leads to is a lot more tier mobility, I'm going to call it, and that means that there's not really all that much that's stopping players and stopping teams from being able to go from Tier 2 to Tier 1 or Tier 3 to Tier 2, because organizations are going to be relatively rife and relatively peppered around in all of those tiers because they have more of an incentive to do so. That means that the things that are really going to be keeping players from achieving Tier 1 or achieving Tier 2 or whatever tier it is that they're moving up towards is themselves, is the skill of the players. And this goes back to the point that I made just before, and that is that this puts so much more of an emphasis on pure skill and pure ability as the reason for teams to be moving up. You could be a great player, but if you're not supported by an organization, you're not necessarily going to be getting everything that you need to support you and to be able to bring out the best in you. And we've seen that in multiple esports and across multiple players, where players who are really good haven't necessarily had the opportunity to shine because of the situation that they're in. But if you have a scenario like this and you have a format which encourages organizations to invest in not just tier 1 but also tier 2 and even tier 3 as well, well then you're more likely to have that support across all of those tiers for all of those players, and that means the really good ones will be more likely to be built in up enough that they can rise up through the tiers and have that tier mobility. And it means that players who do come down from tier 1 or down from tier 2 also have the opportunity to move back up. And it's a lot more, I want to say lubricated, but maybe that's not the best word. It's a lot more, you know, flowing and smooth for players to move between them. And there's a lot less kind of jagged roughness, friction of random other things that is preventing them from making that move. That's not just, are you good enough? Now, I think a really, really big thing is how the national leagues are going to be working. So far, the way the national leagues have worked is they've all been kind of separate. They've been their own thing, and then they have lands at the end of them where you become the champion of that country or whatever. For example, here in the UK, we've had ESL Prem. And, you know, it's great, everyone has fun, but in the grand scheme of things, it hasn't really meant much. In the new format, these national leagues are actually going to be really freaking important because they give you the opportunity to get into Challenger League. The winner of each of the national leagues will get a spot in Challenger League, and if the winner of the national leagues already has a spot in the EU League, then it will be the next team down that gets a spot in Challenger League. What this will do is overall raise the skill floor of all of those teams, because it means that they will automatically have a place in this tier 2 league, therefore be getting better. They'll be vying for the tier 1. If you have some of those tier 1, tier 2 players already in it, then the teams that are a little bit further down in the national leagues, they get a spot, and by extension they also raise their skill level, and therefore the overall skill level gets raised. And it will also mean that people are more invested in watching the national leagues. Because if the skill level is getting raised, and if you also know those players because they're in Challenger League or Pro League or whatever, you're going to be like, huh, I really want to watch that. And that's going to be great. They're more meaningful. As soon as you apply meaning and you apply, you know, something to fight for that has an actual impact on the overall holistic view of what is going on in the esport, that's when people become more invested. If you turn around and you say, you know, these teams are cool, but you know, when they win, they just win, and that's kind of it. Well, a lot of people are going to be a little bit more give and take about that. If you say to people, you know, this team, if they win, they could end up getting to Pro League. Well, I care now. I care. I want to know who these players are. I want to know what countries they're coming from. I want to know who's representing my region in the next year, or who could be. I want to know who I'm vying for, who I'm going to be supporting. And so that's going to bring a lot more viewership, I think, to the national leagues, and a lot more meaning to what it means to be in the national leagues. Now, what's going to be interesting about it is there are rules as to the nationalities of the players who are in the league, but the point is what you may end up seeing is people specifically putting together rosters that are mixed nationality and then aiming to play in the leagues that are the least competitive. Let's say, for example, the least competitive league is the Polish league. I don't know that for sure, but let's just say it's the Polish league. Suddenly, I want to put together a roster that has 3 Polish players and a couple of other really good players that I know, and try and decimate in the Polish league, because that's going to give me a higher chance of getting in first place and getting into Challenger League. Well, what does that do? That, I've said it before, raises the skill level, because suddenly people are going to be moving towards there. It's like osmosis, right? It's the same thing. People are going to be moving towards that league because they think that's where they'll have the higher chance, and suddenly all this skill is starting to even out. And then all these players from different countries are starting to come together and meet one another, and they can form other teams and things like that. And overall, the skill level of the national leagues will be raised. Now, one thing which will come of this, which I think cannot be understated or underrated in value, and I haven't seen anyone mention it, is because of the skill level being raised and because there will be more meaning behind all of these leagues, and there will be more organizations and more money, the average buyout for these players will also go up. These players are going to go up in value. There's going to be more money flowing in the economy, but it's going to mean that these players' livelihoods are going to be so much more viable, even if they're not in Pro League, because they're going to mean much more. Because what could potentially come from if I pick up this player or don't pick up this player, is that the difference between getting to Pro League or not? There's going to be a lot more behind these players. Now, it will mean that obviously players, especially young players, need to be vigilant about, you know, whether they're being screwed over from a financial perspective. Always get a lawyer or an agent, whichever one. But I think having more money around is, you can't deny, that's a good thing. That money can then be invested in other things. They can raise the average salary of the players. They could pick up more players as subs. Overall, having more players who are being paid and able to dedicate their time as a result to the esport because of the health of the economy in the esport, that's great. That's something we want. One thing that we've seen from all sorts of tier 2 leagues, from all sorts of games, not naming names, is is that if you can put your tier 2 players in a place where they can be empowered, make money, make a livelihood, and be able to dedicate to getting better, that is how you'll always have a very competitive and very healthy esports scene. And it looks, as it stands, that is what it is going to be like here in the European League that FACEIT have put together. And oh my god, am I excited for it. Yeah, we don't have a LAN league, but we do have the LAN finals at the end of the year. And I still stand by what I said in the video that I made about America's tier 2 scene, and how I think that the changes that are being done there will be really conducive to a great tier 2 scene in the US and Canada. But I'm really fond of this system. I have to say, I really am. And some people won't agree. As I said, the auto relegation system, it's a little bit contentious. People are disagreeing on it. But personally, I think it'll be so good for business, for the viability of tier 2. It's not just going to be a load of kids in their bedroom who are saying, oh, you know, I want to make it, writing on Reddit saying, I really want to go pro, I'm in diamond rank, what are the odds that I can do it? It's like, there is a full-on ecosystem here. Imagine coming in at the entry level and being told, no, being in this tier could actually mean something for you. It could actually get you to Pro League, like through a direct route that has been set up by the tournament organizer. You could straight up get to Pro League by playing in this tier 3 league. Oh my god, that is insane, and I am so stoked for it. So yeah, there were so many different announcements being made about the EU League today. As I say, don't want to go through every single one of them because there is a lot. I really just wanted to touch on these two main things, auto rels and the national leagues, because I think it is really huge. But it's so much more streamlined, it's so much more definite, and I think it's going to be a hugely positive change for the European scene, and I cannot wait to see the already best and most competitive region. Sorry, just waiting for people to not be riled about that. The best and most competitive region to become even better and even more competitive and just have all the support behind it. I'm really stoked. I'm so stoked for all these players who I have cheered for in Prem, in Challenger League, in GSA, in whatever it is that I've been watching. I'm so freaking stoked, dude. I'm stoked! So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching my video. I tried to make it quick because I'm melting, but I'm very excited to discuss this all with you. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are, how you think it compares to the NA system. If you've read up on what's happening in LATAM, how do you think it compares to that? I briefly skimmed the article. I need to go back and read it properly. But yeah, I will see you guys very soon in the next video. Stay classy and let me know what you think. Goodbye!